G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza and this is a video tutorial on bringing your traditional artworks into a digital medium. So your paintings and your sketches and your ink works and all this stuff, taking them from your held in hands format into your computer and ready to upload on sites like Newgrounds and DeviantArt. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because in the course of doing my showcase video series, I get a lot of artwork sent to me, and most of the traditional art I get sent to me is badly optimized. If not more than half, there are a lot of images, and the problem with this is it means that no matter how much time you spent on making your artwork fantastic, you could have spent a whole day making an ink sketch or a painting really phenomenal. If it's misrepresented and badly optimized when you upload it, it's just going to not be able to communicate your skill and the time you've spent on it. So jumping straight into it, we're going to talk about the three most common methods of bringing your traditional artwork into a digital medium. They are a scanner, a camera, and a phone, or more specifically, the camera on your phone. Now, a scanner of these three is the most tailored to this task. It is specifically made to do this, to bring something tangible in your hands and make it digital. Now, it's also in most cases the cheapest. So you can on eBay or in thrift shops or in computer stores get a scanner for around $100 or less, or a really good one for a little bit more, and it does the job really well. It doesn't warp the image due to any lenses or anything like that. Everything's completely flat, which is what you want. You want to work with a raw image. A camera and a phone, they're also most commonly available to people. Nearly everyone has one, but the problem is you come across a few little things you need to keep in mind when you're taking your picture ready for upload, and we're going to talk about those now. The first thing is camera positioning. This is something that people don't often get right, and you want to take several photos just to find the best one, because you really need to line it up correctly. If you're not taking it directly above or directly in front of your image, it's going to be warped. It's going to have a perspective skew on it, and it's going to misshape the image, even if slightly. And so the more that you're off angle from your image, the more it's going to warp. You also want to make sure it's completely symmetrical and that you're framing things properly. And you also want to make sure that it fills the frame to about 98% of the image. So you have a bit extra room. You'd rather have more room ready to crop than to take an image and miss bits of the image that you could crop out later anyway, and miss important parts of your image. The next thing is the lighting of the image, and this is really important because no matter how much work you do in post-production or in any program, if you bring it in and it's poorly lit, it's not going to look as good as it can. So you want to make sure that the lighting of the room and on the image itself is well done, and you want to have a specific light for it. Now, you can place your image under a house light, which is a nice sort of light, or you, in my case, I would get an actual light and shine it on the image. Now, the thing to be wary about is if you're taking a photo of your image from above and you're standing above your image to make it completely directly downwards, you're going to cast a shadow. And so light placement is important. Now, if you have your light behind you or above you, it's going to cast a shadow, so you place it on the opposite side to which you're taking the photo, and you take the photo above where the light source hits. The other thing is you want it to be fairly bright, because it's easier for a camera to have less gain and to take a clear picture with high lighting than it is to have dim lighting and have the camera work really hard to kind of bring up the contrast and the gain, and it ends up ruining the image quality. Finally, cropping the image. Now, this is something we do after it's in a digital format, and we're going to do that with a few examples that I've prepared earlier. But ladies and gentlemen, that simple kind of approach and keeping these things in mind is just so important, because this is the kind of image I get sent to me. Now, this is a picture I drew, but I purposefully took the image to show you the kind of thing to not do. It warps the image. Things are a bit blurry. You can get a sense of the image and think, oh, okay, that's well drawn. But the image is so badly represented. You can see that there's a shadow cast on the left side where the door is, and you can see that on the right side of the image, it completely cuts out areas of the image. There's a perspective skew, and the lighting is all weird. And it's also a portrait view of a landscape picture, which happens more than you might think. So these are all the things that you should not do. This is quite easily how your picture can look by using a few key steps, many of which I've mentioned. So the raw image that you'll end up having from taking a photo or from scanning will end up looking a little something like this. Okay, so it's not perfect. It is a little bit muddy looking, but still I lit it, I framed it as properly as I could, and this is the kind of thing we end up getting. Now that's great. That's a fine image ready to crop. So what we're going to do, I have a few image examples. I used each of those three methods. So this is the image taken with a camera phone. Now you can see the reason why I wouldn't recommend doing this is because at a distance it looks fine, but when you zoom in, you can see that it becomes very choppy and there's no detail. When I zoom in on his face or on the gun, it's very pixelated. Okay, but it's still a viable method, and so we're going to crop it. This is using my digital camera, just kind of normal sort of thing here, nothing too fancy, the Lumix Panasonic thingy, and it holds a lot more detail, but it is a little murkier and less crisp than this example, which is a scanner image. Now you can see that one of them is flipped upside down because I did have to flip the image, and you can also notice that it is in two parts. Reason being that the image that I have here, let me show you. The image that I have here was created on an A3 piece of paper, which is too large for an A4 scanner. So having used an A4 scanner, I'm going to show you how you can combine those into one image. Anyway, so the point is I scanned each side of the piece of paper, made sure it's as symmetrical and straight on to the scanner as possible. That will be very important later on. And we're going to crop them. Now the first two, I'm going to crop using GIMP. If you want to use a free art program that can do this, GIMP is one I'd recommend. So I'm going to click and drag in my camera phone picture, and I'm going to click here on the left to use my rectangle select tool and just click and drag the area I'm going to crop, which is roughly this. Okay, so now that I've got my area, I'm going to right click my marquee selection. I'm going to go, I believe it's image, and then crop to selection. So there we go, I've cropped my image. So that's the first one of the final steps that we have to take. And then the last step that we want to take is to kind of balance our lighting. So I'm going to right click and go colors and go brightness contrast. And I'm going to bring up the contrast and bring up the brightness just a little bit. And you really kind of got to play this by ear, because you want a strong contrast. You want your blacks to be blacks and your whites to be almost white, but you also don't want to lose detail. So I think that's a good balance. Hit OK, and so I've got my brightness contrast, and simple as that, I'm done. So I hit File, Export, and I can save my image as camera phone 2, and I'm done. And I've exported my image, and you can see immediately the difference between that and that. Okay, so how very quickly, without spending a single cent on a program for post-production, we've done that. So we'll do the same thing now for our camera image. So I bring in my camera image. Okay, so similar sort of thing. I'm going to use my crop tool, the marquee square selection, and crop it. Now when you crop it, you want to make sure that you get all of the image in, and unless you want the kind of faded edges or where the image starts to fade out to be part of the image, I'd recommend not including them. So having cropped to the area I want to crop, right click, image, and hit crop to selection, and then finally right click, colors and brightness contrast. Bring up the contrast, and you can see how already very quickly it's looking pretty good. I don't want to bring up the brightness too much. We'll see what it looks like. I don't want it to be too much. Bring up the contrast. So you really kind of got to feel your way through this. Bring down the brightness a little bit. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. Hit OK, and that is my image. Another thing that you can do is mess with the saturation, because often when you bring in, especially in a photograph, an image of a piece of paper, it can end up looking yellow or blue. So you just go colors and you go to hue saturation and you bring the saturation down. And if you bring it to 0, it's black and white. Sometimes you might want a little bit of color in there. So you just bring it down about halfway and hit OK. And there we go. I'm happy with that image. File, export, and I will save it. And I'm done. Export. Finished. Hooray. Okay, so the final example I want to do is the scanner image, and I'm going to use a different program. I'm going to use Adobe Photoshop. So how to do this? We've got two images here. I'm going to click and drag my left side of the image in here, and I'm going to go up to Image, and going to go to Canvas Size, and I can see the width is 2,500 pixels. I'm going to bring this with anchored to the left. I'm going to bring it to 5,000 pixels. Hit enter, and then I can click and drag the other side of the image in there and hit enter, and all I need to do is position this in the right place. Now it's got to be exactly the right place, and see how important it is that the scanned image that I brought in is symmetrical, because if it was slightly off, for example, if I placed the paper in the scanner at a slight angle, I'd be working with something like this and I wouldn't be able to line it up, because even if I get the head to line up, the leg would be out. So make sure that it's really symmetrical, and when I've done that, I can crop my image. So I'm going to crop it by using the marquee tool or the crop tool, which I should probably use. So I'm going to use the crop tool here, and you can see that I just simply click and drag and hide and make visible the areas I want or don't want in my image. So I want that in there. I'll bring up the bottom to about here. Hit enter. There we go. So I've cropped my image. I'm happy with that. I'm going to merge these layers into one image layer. And one thing I like to do is have a duplicate of the raw background image, just so that I don't lose the raw version in case I need to go back. So I click and drag this to a new layer so I have a duplicate. And then I go to Image, Adjustments, Brightness, Contrast, bring up the contrast, mess with the brightness until I get a balance that I'm happy with. So I want a really sort of rich, dark looking picture. Hit OK. And I can also mess with other things like the saturation and hue, but I won't mess with that for now because I'm happy with what I've got. Although I will a little bit. I'll bring down the saturation. It looks a little blue. In fact, I might bring it over to a more red end of the spectrum and then bring the saturation down. Hit OK, and I'm very happy with this now. Now, the other thing to realize is that different to the photographed image, so you can see here with my camera image, while I can zoom in and there's a lot of detail, there's a vast difference between that and this. Okay, see how crisp it is, and see how on the actual pixels level everything is really clean, whereas here everything's still a bit muddy. No matter how good the camera, it's not going to end up as good as it does with a machine like a scanner, which is dedicated to doing this. So now that I've got everything lined up and I'm happy with how it looks, I hit File, Save for Web, or Save as a JPEG, and then I've got my image done. So ladies and gentlemen, quite simply put, that is how I optimize my images for the web. And please, if you're going to send me images for the Artist Showcase, make sure you optimize it properly, because you really want to represent your work well. You don't want to undermine your own talent and potential by not showing your good side, if that makes any sense. So before we leave, I'll just show you the final examples of our images here. So we've got our camera phone image, raw, and that's how you correctly want to take the image so that you can crop it and adjust the brightness and contrast, and we've got that version there. Then we have our camera image, and then we crop that and adjust the brightness and contrast, and it ends up looking like this. And then finally, we have the two pieces of our scanned image which come together to look like this. Now you can see the difference between the photographed image and the scanned image. They're quite drastic, more than you might think. It's much crisper and much cleaner in this scanned image. So I'm very happy with the result, and I'm going to color this, and I'll use this one as the base. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. I hope it's been useful, and until next time, I will see you later.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoy my videos. You can download the reference files from this tutorial by clicking the link in the description. And remember to share any art, animation or game you make on Newgrounds.com. Until next time, see you later.